Democratic organization Media Matters force Facebook and Google to censor alternative media. A powerful Democratic media watchdog has successfully convinced Facebook and Google to censor and suppress alternative media websites from their platforms. According to a recently leaked briefing document from far-left liberal activist David Brock, his media organization, Media Matters, colluded with Facebook and Google in order to suppress alternative media websites from appearing in users' news feeds and search results. The leaked briefing book, entitled Media Matters, the top watchdog against fake news and propaganda transforming the media landscape, was privately published by Brock in January to solicit donors, and lays out the strategy for controlling the U.S. media narrative. The briefing book advances the narrative of fake news, which actually began with Media Matters, and reveals Brock is attempting to launch what the hard left calls a meme. A meme is essentially a narrative designed to discredit news organizations that dare report from anything other than a neoliberal perspective. The goal is to discredit any organization that doesn't toe the neoliberal line. The main thrust of this narrative Brock is forwarding is to paint anyone who opposes the neoliberal agenda as alt-right, with a direct implication that they are racist, anti-Semitic, or misogynistic. It must be noted that this blanket term is used to intentionally marginalize anyone that disagrees with their ideological stance. Make no mistake that conflating neo-Nazis and racists with constitutionalists, libertarians, and conservatives is a strategic maneuver meant to marginalize the voice of large segments of the U.S. population. Brock implicates both Google and Facebook as SEO conspirators in forwarding this fake news narrative against independent media organizations like the Free Thought Project. Brock clearly articulates this strategy, as laid out on page 2 of his briefing book. Over the next 4 years, Media Matters will focus on achieving the following outcomes: serial misinformers and right-wing propagandists inhabiting everything from social media to the highest levels of government will be exposed. Internet and social media platforms, like Google and Facebook, will no longer uncritically and without consequence host and enrich fake news sites and propagandists. Toxic alt-right social media-fueled harassment campaigns that silence dissent and poison our national discourse will be punished and halted. This clear attempt to consolidate control over the informational narrative Americans are exposed to is dangerous, and nothing less than a true threat to freedom. In essence, Brock is attempting to create a more effective propaganda model, as forwarded by academic Noam Chomsky, to prevent people having any perspective outside of the one the hard left wants seen by the public, using social media as the weapon. The narrative of fake news had a creeping, but clear, drive to delegitimize alternative media outlets, likely due to reporting on U.S. hegemony, imperialism, and topics like the contents of WikiLeaks releases of the DNC and Podesta emails during the election, while the mainstream media largely refused to do so. Revealing the origins of the soft censorship regime, Lachin Marquet reported in the Washington Free Beacon that during the 2016 presidential campaign, Media Matters launched a petition drive aimed at pressuring Facebook into prohibiting fake news websites and to adjust its model to stem the flow of damaging fake news from its platform pages. There was a clear trickle-down agenda enacted after a secret post-election meeting of progressive elites with the Democratic Alliance, CO founded by Soros in 2005, with Media Matters acting as the propaganda arm by issuing a press release about fake news and, like clockwork, numerous publications, such as the Washington Post, began running articles about fake news. In the leaked briefing book, Brock acknowledged that Google was a relatively easy sell on the fake news narrative, but Facebook was a much harder sale, with Mark Zuckerberg initially calling the notion that fake news is a problem is crazy. So, how did Media Matters handle this? According to the briefing documents, in November, we launched a campaign pressuring Facebook to 1. Acknowledge the problem of the proliferation of fake news on Facebook and its consequences for our democracy, and 2. Commit to taking action to fix the problem. Brock subsequently reported that as a result of our push for accountability, Facebook would now toe the neoliberal/globalist line and implement a soft censorship regime under the guise of ridding Facebook of fake news. In the wake of this full-court press by the neoliberal establishment, President Obama disingenuously proclaimed fake news a threat to our democracy during a speech in Berlin. In turn, Mark Zuckerberg caved to the pressure and announced a fact-checking regime, laughably announcing the use of PolitiFact, Snopes, and ABC News to fact-check and flag disputed stories, which would then result in disputed stories being given a lower algorithm ranking, thus not as often appearing in people's news feeds. Make no mistake that this is simply an attempt by the corporate oligarchy to regain control of the informational gates of society, which they have lost due to the rapid rise of social media, in an effort to soft censor any dissenting worldviews. Brock believes that the only truth is that which supports a neoliberal globalist agenda, and that all other points of view must be marginalized. It's painfully obvious that Media Matters, Brock, and his oligarchic ilk have no respect for free speech, as they attempt to create an echo chamber for neoliberal globalism, while attempting to silence all other voices. These actions, by the oligarchic left, are simply war by other means.